All right, it looks like this is about to start. So today I'm going to look at a problem that I've seen 3 times. So it's not just kind of a random thing, I guess. And this would be an iPhone 6s that has no image because of a short within the CPU on this LCM reset line. And I'm not sure why that's kind of become a thing. My guess is that it has to do with folks that do something like connect the wrong connector to the digitizer connector in the iPhone 6s. So maybe you have the connectors out of order. One of the ones that I've seen had the connectors out of order so that the front camera was connected to the digitizer connector. And another one, they admitted that this happened after they had tried accidentally to plug in an iPhone 6 screen into a 6S connector. But in any event, this is something that I've seen now 3 times, and we're going to try and see if there's anything we can do. It sounds like a tough problem to overcome a short within the CPU on a line that's needed for image. So let's see. So so it looks like Jason from STS Telecom also has seen this before. iPad Rehab, is that Board Asker on forum? Board Asker on forum, I'm not sure what that means. Okay, so let's look at the actual fault. So we'll look at this iPhone 6s and see if you guys can help come up with some kind of a plan for this. All right, so is this one of the, let me see what this is. Is this one of the, this is not a 6S at all. This is a 6. All right, so what's this here for? This is, I think, a different no image problem. Let's see. Oh, here we go. All right, so I've got a couple candidates here. They all have the same fault. So here we go. This is a 6S. Yeah, this was the one that I looked at most recently. So the fault is here at the AP LCM reset line. And is the stream working? I don't know. You tell me. Is the stream working? It sucks to the point when they come in for connector replacement, I check that line first to be sure. I don't want to waste my time on a no fix. Yeah, me too. It totally sucks. So Jason, tell me if you have any suggestions on what history you've noticed with that problem. Have you noticed that it's associated with, hey, I plugged the wrong screen in, or anything else? Drop, water damage, anything else? I've never seen this fail outside of someone else looked at this first. So this to me doesn't seem like a native failure. It seems like a technician damage failure, but I don't know. I've only I see most of the phones that come here disgustingly have already been seen by somebody else, so that really does cause variables. All right, so let's see. Let's see. I have one too, says Q's Tech Service. Great. I'd like to hear you guys comment on your history with these phones so that we can at least try to see if we can understand why this is happening. Why is this happening all the time? All right. I have an iPad 3rd generation backlight filter doing a screen fix. How much it costs for you to fix it? Those questions, Josh, you can submit a quote request to our website, which you can just Google iPad Rehab and find your way there. Otherwise, it's www.mendonipadrehab. And we have to capture information from you in order to get you a quote about your device. Damaged connectors and liquid damage. I don't see how liquid damage itself could happen, but damaged connectors. I think that you get a damaged connector when someone's plugging, replugging, plugging, replugging. So to me, I think this is somehow related to plugging the wrong thing in or the wrong way, and that must send a voltage down into the CPU. All right. Yes, mostly damaged connectors. So damaged connectors itself isn't a problem. It's a symptom of a different problem, which is somebody's trying to plug things in wrong. Okay, so let's look back at this guy. All right, so here is, let's do a diode mode reading. So here is where this line, I've removed a little resistor here that goes to ground. And let's see what we have. So if I put a probe, let's switch that around. So I'm going to put a probe on ground and see what we get here. And I hear a beep and I see 0.004 on diode mode reading. And if I compare that to a known good 6S, let's see what it should be. Actually, I think for this stream, let's change that from diode to actual true resistance to ground. So let's go back and see what the bona fide resistance to ground is on that line. So in ohms, resistance to ground on that line is 4 ohms, 3.9 to 4 ohms. All right, so let's look at a known good here. So I'm going to take the screen off, and I've stuck a wire on here because this is the one that we're going to use to try and figure out what's what. All right, so saying this is a known good with a working image, and let's take resistance to ground measurement on that. All right. Looks like it's just about 100 kiloohms. So 100 kiloohms is what the resistance on that line is supposed to be. And on ours, it is 4 ohms. That's not good. And let's go ahead and look at the line itself on ZXW so we can kind of understand that. And then we can look at it in the schematic as well. All right, so I blew something on a iPhone 6S as I stupidly replaced the screen and it was actually powered on. Yes, well, that's not a good thing to do. Pretty much everyone that's been changing iPhone 5 screens with the attitude of all those battery and unplugging elitists, they don't know because, bro, I've changed 100,000 iPhone 5 series LCDs and I never disconnect the battery, so suck it. Every single one of those guys will be hitting up the microsolders for backlight repair. You absolutely have to disconnect the battery on the 6S. It is a pussy and it doesn't like you to fuck with it. All right, so let's go ahead and look at ZXW then. Let's see. I had no image and no backlight filters were all good, so it's coming to America. All right, that sounds good, unless it's this exact problem, in which case, hopefully we can figure it out before it gets here. Hi, Jess, I have a 6S Plus, all rails present, but the PP GPU. How can I diagnose a dead A9 CPU? Many thanks. Well, PP GPU is not going to be present. That's going to be 0 until it's asked to make an image. So don't worry about that until you have that phone booting and connecting to iTunes, because that's really unlikely to be a problem. It's interesting how you went from biology to this. Where would we be without you? I don't know the answer to that. Okay. Spend the extra 5 seconds and pull the battery. Absolutely. All right, let's go ahead and look over at ZXW tool. So I'm going to take you guys over to screen, and we're going to look at ZXW tool to see what the hell does this line do. All right. All right, so here it is. All right, so here's that line. Christy, did you put tempered glass on that? Yeah. Okay, perfect. Yep, no problem. I know you give us a lot of referrals. And I highly recommend the love handle. It is super, super awesome. You can hold your phone out the window with that thing on there. All right, so let's look at this line. So ZXW does not, the line is renamed on the other side of the filter. So here we are at the LCD connector. This guy's name on the side of the connector is AP, so CPU, to LCM reset, connector side. All right, there's a little cap there, goes across the filter to this resistor, and this is a pull-down resistor because it has a connection to ground. And then it goes into the board there, and what about after that? It pops up over here under the CPU. So there's one ball there under the CPU. So it's incredibly unlikely that drop or anything is going to actually affect that one single ball within the CPU, especially when the rest of the phone boots. It's recognized by iTunes. So this is going to be electrical damage. This really isn't going to happen. There's no way liquid's going to get under there or anything else like that. So how could this ball become shorted to ground? Because we know the fault is between, we can pull this filter, the fault is between right there within the board, down through the traces, and popping up under this ball. So just looking at it like that, you have to think, what would be the most likely cause of this problem? And in my opinion, I think the answer to that would be electrical damage. It's hard to see how you would get a fault like this in the absence of electrical damage. So what does that mean? That means that if you think about the CPU itself as a tiny little miniature nano circuit board with all sorts of connections that's handling all kinds of data, that if you blow a big voltage down into a nano hair-thinned sized line within that chip, that you're just going to blow it apart and make it connect to some ground line within the chip. So electrical damage to the CPU itself. So that's a real deal breaker if it's a data recovery job like this one. So we have to try to think, is there a way for us to work around the fact that that line is shorted within the CPU? And so let's try to learn about this line. Let's try to think about what does it do and whether or not we need it and that sort of thing. Okay, so all right, so let's do that. So let's dig up the schematic and see if we can figure out what the hell this line does. So iPhone 6s schematic, and let's take you guys over here. iPhone 6s schematic, and let's start at the connector itself. So we'll go and look for the name of this component, the resistor. All right, so the resistor that goes bad is this guy. So the resistor itself doesn't go bad, but the short is on this side of the resistor. So R4220. So let's find out some details on R4220. So we'll grab a search window and ask it, R4220, tell me more about yourself. All right, so R4220, here we go. All right, so R4220 itself is just a 100 kilo ohm resistor to ground, which is just going to give this line a way to dump to ground. Let's follow the line itself. All right, so this line comes from the CPU, which we'll follow in a second. It goes through the filter, and then it goes on to the connector itself. So let's grab the name of the line and see if there's anything else that we can learn about it from here. So we'll take AP to LCM reset. Now the L means low. This is a data line, it's not a power line. So it's carrying information. And for a simple line like this, LCM reset, we could just make a guess that the information that would be in that line is likely to be something to the tune of, hey, when I am low, then reset the display. And when I am high, leave the display on. That's most likely the case. Camera is blurry. All right. Okay, so this is here where the line originates. This is the CPU, so MAUI, the CPU, and we can see this is an outgoing line from the CPU itself out to the screen. So AP to LCM, which pretty much means image or display. So the CPU tells the image to reset, which is something that you would expect to happen if you were going to hit like lock, unlock, power button on your phone and make your screen go dark. This would be a way for your phone to stay on and operating, but not always have a display that's active, so that you can put your phone in the pocket. It's possible that the proximity sensor may also send a signal that gets processed by the CPU, the application processor, and then that would send out reset low, probably a 0 or no volts on this line, that would prompt the screen to turn off. All right, so interestingly, we also have another kind of similar line here, AP to touch reset low. So this might be something that we can at least try and think about whether or not we could borrow this, because Display and touch need to be active at the same time, so we're going to kind of keep that guy in mind as well. All right, so that's it for this line. It goes from the CPU to, from the CPU, this thing always is all over the place. Let's kind of follow it in order. From the CPU to here, this comes from the CPU, and then it's going to go through this filter, and then it's going to go on to the connector, which is terribly out of order on here, and then onto the connector. So that's it. That's the entire line. All right, so what does that mean? The next thing that we want to do is investigate in a normal working device with an active screen, what is the behavior on this line, so that we can try to understand it and therefore maybe think of a plan. So let's see what suggestions you guys have. Let's see. How can I get that software you're using? ZXW tool, I guess, is what you're talking about, which you can buy from the iPad Rehab Supply store once it's in stock, I think. I replace connector damage to someone trying to replace the screen, still no image. CPU gets hot, but have not ruled out yet. I think CPU is going to put it aside for a reball. Connector damage really shouldn't kill a CPU. I mean, is this line short? Yes or no? That's the only thing. And I don't think, I want you to tell me from what we just talked about, let's say that in your device, you have a short on this AP to LCM reset line. Let's say that's the case, that the actual reason you have no image is because of a short on this line. You tell me why reballing the CPU is unlikely to solve the problem. How does it get to be like that? Why would reballing it solve that? Is the problem in the balls? Tell me what you think about that. I haven't looked into the line at all, but could you run a jumper from a working 6S to get picture for data recovery? I'm guessing not. Well, so those things are one thing that you think about is, could you run a line from a working 6S, and what would that do? So let's think about that. First, we need to really understand our line. So let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll come back to that kind of question. All right, ZXW. All right, if simply breaking that line fixes this, I'm going home. Well, I don't think that's going to be the case. I would assume that you've already tried that, right? I mean, that would be the low-hanging fruit would be to just inject that line from at the filter, take off the filter and inject the line into the connector and things like that, right? All right, would LCM be liquid crystal module? I would be guessing matrix, but I have no idea. All right. Are you going to use the scope? Yes. If it's an active low signal, it'll keep the LCM in reset and it won't display. Yes, so Leslie Monroe gets it. So you have to think about what would be the likely purpose. So our guess right now is that this is a signal that's either high or low, and our guess would be that AP, so from the CPU telling the screen, hey, within the CPU, we've gotten information that says that this screen should be off because somebody hit the power button, and now we're just telling you, turn the screen off. And we're going to do that by taking this voltage away. So that's likely the communication there, that it's the CPU already thinks that that for some reason I should reset, and so it's just sending that information out. So we would probably have to think of a way to tell the CPU, hey, no, don't reset that line. Don't hold it low. All right. Why don't you go to China for iPhone 7 ID solutions? I have zero interest in iPhone 7 ID solutions. My solution would be to go 10 minutes away instead of to China and get a screen for $100. That would be far, far easier. My interest is in the home button function. I don't like the idea that anyone around the world is going to get a screen swap job for an iPhone 7, do something to the home button by accident, and then have a phone that has no home button. For a long time, we've kind of accepted that if a technician makes a mistake and messes up, and they lose the Touch ID function for that customer, the right thing to do would be to go get another screen from Apple, and they can do this or not. But a lot of people don't really use Touch ID, and that's not that big of a deal. So you probably can hand back, at least for a short period of time, I'm sorry this happened today, and we can take care of this for you at some appointment. We'll make a Genius Bar appointment. We'll go take care of this for you if you come back in on Wednesday. But you really can't hand back somebody a phone that has no home button working. Okay, so where is the iPad? I do not know. Chinese have great tools, more than we know. Sure. Okay, let's figure out what this line does. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to use the oscilloscope to ask on this phone, what is the signal? When does it appear? When does it go away? What is the signal when we boot the screen? So this is at my working iPhone 6s. This is the working iPhone 6s, and I've just soldered a wire here to that line. Connector's good, everything should be fine. Now, in order for the device to do anything with screen, image, and voltages, touch, etc., it has to have a screen connected, because that's part of enabling it and telling the device, hey, I have a screen, so you should go ahead and produce everything that's needed for display and touch. So we're going to put a screen on here, and then we're going to follow this line out, and we're going to connect this to the oscilloscope. So that's our plan. Oops. That's our plan right now. So how is this going to work? I'm going to put a screen on here to start with, and we are going to see what we can learn. All right, so I'm going to plug in a screen. Plug in the battery, and now let's first verify that this actually still makes a display. All right, so it does. So this is a normal working 6S that does produce a display. So I'm going to lay that down here on the bench, and then I'm going to take the probes from the oscilloscope. So I'm going to connect this to ground. I'm going to clamp it onto the SIM tray, and then I'm going to use the probe to just probe that. So I'm just going to touch the wire, and then we will start the phone and see what we can learn on the oscilloscope, which should show us the details of the signal. So it's going to show us whether or not there's a signal of ones and zeros, or if it's just kind of, if it starts out high and then goes low, or if it starts low and then goes high, or if there's sort of a oscillation. Does it go high and then turn off after a second, or what's the timing and what's the whole deal? We're going to investigate. We're going to do science and figure out what this line actually looks like in a normal working device. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to connect the ground lead, and I'm going to get a piece of tape and tape down my wire. All right, so that I can touch it. All right, so so I did this already and kind of figured out what the general settings would be so that we didn't have to waste a whole lot of time on that. All right. So let's see. I'm thinking possibly CPU got too hot and it caused damaged underfill. That's not an unreasonable idea, but in the case of this particular shorted line, it would be electrical damage. All right. Let's see. Please, can you change your name to phone repair? No, I cannot. All problem has one solution. No. I gather that is the LCM reset line filter. Not filter, but LCM reset line, yes. The short circuit is frequently on iPhone 6s, yes, which is why we're doing a video. What sucks is when the iPhone 8 comes out and Touch ID is embedded in the screen, it's going to suck for repair shops. Well, we'll wait and see. All right. What does read the message mean? I have no idea. Read the message. What are you talking about? All right, so we're gonna just see what happens here. So let's go ahead and connect the battery again. The screen is off, and I'm gonna hold the probe here on my wire, and now let's see what happens. I'm getting ready to press the power button, so we're gonna see. What we're looking for is whether or not this moves, jumps up, goes up and down, or what. So let's do it. Ready? 1, 2, 3, power button. All right, so I see a display. And you kind of have to monkey around with these things a bit. So I'm still holding it on there. The display is still lit. Display is still lit, so we're just kind of watching what happens here. All right, so we're going to kind of drill down on this. All right, so now the display just went off. It went to sleep. All right, so I'm going to hit power button again, power. And then off, power, off, power. So I think that if we kind of mess with this, which is really hard to do while holding this one here. All right, so while the screen is on, it looks like this is about probably 1.8 volts. Now it just went off. Back on. Back off. Back on. Back off. On. Let's try to hold that on there better. Off. On. Off. On. Off. All right, so what does that mean? Let's kind of interpret those results. So I think monkeying around with it looks like, you know, with these oscilloscopes, you kind of have to mess around with it to figure out whether or not you're looking at something at incredibly close detail or looking at something really far away, and kind of find your way to where the information is. So my interpretation of this is that the information is pretty simple, that it is on is 1.8 volts, off is 0 volts. And it stays at 1.8 volts when the screen is on. And then when you hit the power button to make the screen go dark, it goes down to 0. So let's see. Can everyone shut the fuck up and watch? What? All right. God, that line's noisy. Must be some flaky caps on that line. Well, we did take off. I think this one might have the filter on the line off. I'm not really sure. All right. I was thinking the same thing. Okay. iPhone 6s, no touch. That's always little peckers. Set it up to get that on the screen. No, fucking read it. Come on. All right, the reason you got shorted 6S is from not pulling the power before LCD replacement, probably. Okay, so here's the deal. We're gonna now use the multimeter to see what that voltage is, and it's probably 1.8 and it's probably 0. So let's just kind of check on that, just so that you guys can see this. Does this one have the backlight function? I don't know if it does or not. Does it? Yeah. Backlight, come on. And the battery is super low. All right, I don't know if you guys can see that or not. All right, let's do the same thing, but we're gonna use the multimeter. So we're going to put it on voltage and see what the multimeter reads as voltage on that line. So I'm going to put one probe on ground and one probe here on that exact same spot. If possible. Ground, come on, get in there. Line, all right. So I turn the screen on. Multimeter says 1.8. Screen's on, screen's on, screen's on. Screen's on, 1.8, and it stays at 1.8, and it's not flickering around. And then click it off, and it goes to 0. All right, so there we go. I think that's the information that we wanted to get here, which now tells us a little bit more. Now we know that that kind of as expected, the LCM reset line is not fancy data. It is when the screen is on, that line needs to be 1.8 volts. And when the screen is off or reset, that line is pulled low by the CPU and you get 0 on that line. So in our phone with the problem where there's a short on that line, we're going to have 0 all the time, which means that we're never going to get an image. So what should we do first? So now we can kind of think about this a little bit. It's kind of, I think we kind of have to rule it out, although it's probably a waste of time. But let's see what happens if we were to just plug in 1.8 volts. Just say, fuck the CPU telling the screen to reset. Let's see if we can get image just by providing the screen itself with that 1.8 volts. So we're just going to kind of let the CPU short the reset line. It's always going to be a 0 within the CPU. And we're just going to bring 1.8 to the connector. So we kind of have to rule that out. Hey, I heard a donation sound. Awesome. All right, so let's see. So basically, it's a screen enable line. Yeah, pretty much. That's what it sounds like. So let's do experiment trial number 1 is, actually, I feel like we should do it on this. That doesn't really make sense, I guess. We'll have to do it on the dead one. All right, so we're gonna accept that the CPU is just gonna think, hey, I should be resetting this, but we're not gonna let it deliver that news to the connector. So we know that this line should be 1.8 if we want to have a screen enabled. So let's just see what the screen does if we don't let it hear the message from the CPU, hey bro, turn yourself off. All right, so we're gonna do that. All right, if you're missing LCM reset and jumper 1v8, it will work, but when it goes to sleep, the display won't display again. Well, that's fine, and that's what we're trying to figure out. So, I mean, the CPU is still going to have that line within the CPU as a 0. So we don't know how the rest of image handling within the CPU is going to happen. So we may not get an image. That's what we're going to test. All right, so let's go back to this and let's make a plan for bad idea, disconnect CPU. Why is that a bad idea? I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's great. All right, so let's go back and look and see how we're going to do this. Okay, so, all right, so this one has the CPU side of the line is isolated because the resistor is gone. So this is going to always be a 0. However, the place that it needs to be 1v8 is supposed to be through this filter and delivered here, there's a cap, and into this pin of the connector itself. So let's see if we can, we could just sort of inject 1.8 volts from a DC power supply, or we could try to borrow it from the 1v8 touch reset line, but then we'd have to go investigate it. All right, let's go ahead with the idea of let's just inject it from the DC power supply. So that means I'm going to pull off this filter, and on this side, I'm going to inject 1.8 volts. So let me just go back and make sure that the filter is the one at the top. So let's take you guys with me. So let's go check out over here and see what the deal is. This middle one is the filter. So what we're going to do is delete the filter. So we're going to get rid of that. And then with the filter gone, we've broken the path of this line from CPU side to the connector side. So then we're free to just put a wire here and inject 1.8 into the connector and see what happens. Okay. Let's see, what else are you guys? Any long screw damage? Nope, not on this phone. How is everything? Good. Is there a holiday at your place? I don't see anyone at your workplace. Well, Christy's up front because she doesn't like to be on stream. And the rest of us are, let's see, today is Erie Canal Field Trip Day, so we've got folks there. I think both Jean and Sunday are on. Jean's at the dentist, actually, although she couldn't prove it because apparently her dentist has given up on giving away free toothbrushes. Can you believe the economy? The dentists don't give you a free toothbrush anymore. All right, looks like it was put under a lot of heat. I don't know where you're getting that from. I don't see any kind of heat at all. All right, Jessa got the scope and making videos. I think I can actually see atoms. Take the coil off and inject the far side of the coil. We don't call filters coils. We call them filters. So it sounds like you're saying the same thing that we are, which is take the filter off and inject the far side of the filter. Coming up, that's the plan. All right, so we are going to take off the filter. And let's do it. All right, so we're gonna make these guys get on. Let's get that dude out of there. And we'll just hang on to him. We'll hang on to him right here. All right, now we can stick a wire, a similar wire, right there. So let's do that and see what happens. So we've got our handy spool of insulated magnet wire, that super thin gauge. And we've got to kind of put this down in a way that it's not going to bother the connector or the screen. All right, so we are going, let me get a pair of tweezers. We are going to connect to right here. All right. Seems good. Now let's kind of get this guy to lay down a little bit so that he doesn't bother anybody. Lay down, bro. I don't want you to talk to him because that's ground. All right, so we're going to kind of raise you up to just make sure you don't talk to anybody that you're not supposed to. Don't want you hanging out with the guys that smoke weed under the tree at school. Gotta avoid the appearance of evil. All right, so we're going to tape that down. Okay, now we are going to have to tin the other end of our wire. So this wire itself is going to be insulated. So we're going to go out to the end of it and just kind of wipe off some of that insulation so that we can connect it to electricity. All right, so we'll just keep that end of it, stick some flux, and just burn off that bit of insulation. So here we go. What hot tweezers do you use, Jessa? You can click the video description and see a link to all of our tools and supplies. And click and get yourself a pair right away. All right, that's good. So now we've got a tinned wire that we can connect to. So I'm going to set the DC power supply, which if I was more organized, I would pull this around so that you guys could actually see it. We might need to do that again, actually, so I wonder if I could do that. There's like 10,000 DC power supplies at all the student stations, but that I think would just cause too many variables. All right, so let's see. We are going to attach just to 1.8 on the DC power supply alligator clamps. We got to get one on ground on the board and then one on the wire that we just made. And we're going to need a dock and a screen, since this one is not in a housing. All right, so we're going to connect this. I'm going to turn the DC power supply off and this iron, and let's connect our wire. All right, and let's connect a screen. So there's some chance that this will work. Some chance that the only point of the reset line is that it may be that image handling within the CPU, all of the data for image and all of that stuff, could carry on as normal, because the moment that you click that power button to wake the screen back up, it's not like it has to load the display again. It's just right there. It's almost like it's just that the lights are turned out. So it may be that that image is present and it's just being disabled here at the screen. So there's a chance that this could actually work. And if not, then we're going to have to think about how can we overcome the fact that there is a short on that line. What would we have to do for that? All right, so let's get this connected. All right, and now I need a charged 6S battery, which might be a tall order. Let's see what we can find. All right, that's a 6S battery. Let's measure the voltage on the battery, and let's see. Don't let Lewis get you. He will dring you out. Who are you talking to? Me? I don't know. All right, I have no idea. I had the same issue before and objected 1v8 at the connector side display works. Okay, great. That would be totally awesome. Since this is data recovery, we only need touch and display to work for a brief second, and then we can get data, which is awesome. All right, so I am connecting a charged battery, and now I need a dock that works so that I can prompt to boot. So you could, if that really did work and you wanted to kind of be able to wake the display up, you would have to probably allow that 1v8 reset to go to 0 and then come back. So you could rig up some kind of a you could in theory rig up a way for that line to be connected at the power button, so that the power button, which already shorts 1v8 to ground as the signal to wake up, that it would be doing the same thing on that line. That would be kind of cool. That sounds like a fun experiment, but let's see if this solution is going to work. All right, so I got a dock. I will be surprised if it works, because I think that it's more likely that the CPU thinking, hey, I'm sending out, I've got 0 on this line, so therefore I'm resetting, that you're not going to be able to just get away with that. But we'll see. All right, so now I have this phone connected to a battery. I have not prompted it to boot yet. And I'm going to start by putting my 1v8 there. And it is consuming 100 milliamps. All right, so now let's see what happens. Plugging it in. Too bad you guys can't see and I can't help you with that. All right, so I'm plugging it in to prompt it to boot, and I don't see anything on the display. Let's check image. No image, no backlight. I have 1.8, and it must be connecting well because I have 100 milliamps being consumed by the device. All right, so I want to hear it actually detect at the computer so that I know that the device is powering on. So let's kind of wait on that for a little bit, and I'll read the chat. So I'm going to see. All right, so I've had the same issue before and objected 1.8 volts at the connector side. Display works. So was that 1.8 on the reset line? That's unclear. Injected 1.8. Let's see. Really enjoyed your stream with the electrical engineer. I'm an electrical engineer. My whole career has been in the MR engineering area. Fantastic. All right, so I do hear it detect. So iTunes is detecting this phone, which means that it's on. And I'm going to pull it, and it's still detecting, and I see no image on that at all. So before we kind of say, all right, so then just putting 1.8 volts at the connector is good, let's make sure that this experiment is actually set up right and the connections are working and things like that. So I want to actually get a read out that we actually have 1.8 at the connector. So let's disconnect. So I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to disconnect the battery and disconnect the dock and disconnect all of this. All right, so let's kind of go back and look and just rule out the simple things. You always kind of want to have some validation. Like that connector came off really loosely, so it can be kind of hard to put a connector in there after monkeying with it for a while. So maybe that screen wasn't really in there. These connectors do tend to be really, really sensitive. The pins can easily fail here. All right, so let's just clean the flux out of there, and let's give this another try just to rule out that there was a connector connection problem. So this particular connector I think looks pretty good. A lot of the other ones that will have this problem will be really, really janky because people struggle. They don't want it to be true. They don't want their screen that was just working to now be dead, so they just try to make it be a problem that it's not. They want it to just be a connection issue, so they'll just keep connecting, disconnecting, connecting, disconnecting. All right, so my view, all of these pins look good. And let me just check to make sure that I don't have a short to ground or anything on that wire just from how it's connected. So let's see, is that short to ground? All right, nope, it is not. All right, so that's good. Oh, I got a blob there. I don't think those guys can talk to each other. All right, so there, I fucked up. All right, so I have a bridge between this cap and that dude from me putting a wire on there. So that is a deal breaker and invalidates our experimental results as usual. So let's go back and see what those two dudes are on ZXW. So let's go to screen and let's fly over here. All right, so what are these two guys? So that's the ground side. Oh, that's not, oh yeah, so this is the ground side. This is the line side of the 1V8 required line for image power. So that's got to be there for image power. And this guy is the ground side. So a bridge between the ground of that cap and this is officially grounding out my image power. So therefore, I would have no image as long as that bridge is present. So there we go. The beauty of troubleshooting. So that means we got to fix that before we can see what the result is. So that's good. That means we're back in the game. We got a chance that this will actually work. And now, since we shorted that line to ground, we also have to go back and check our filter, which is probably burned, and replace that as well. All right, so oh, that's not on. That is not on the right channel. All right, watch out, dude. We got to clear a bridge. We got to clear a bridge, yo. This is incredibly awkward at this angle. All right, we're gonna have to use a little tiny piece of braid. All right, don't let Lewis get you. He will drink you out. Drink, you drink. Don't know what you guys are talking about. Lewis likes to train his lever, Southern Comfort, and Jägermeister. Yes, we will not discuss Lewis's drinking. All right. We got to get this all edited here. Only the finest lictor. Resistance of the short. The AP-LCM reset short, it was 4 ohms. So if you're thinking about how could we get 1V8 on the line, that would be our next plan, to figure out and show everybody how to use some calculators to figure out what we could do. All right, so now that is cleared. Under there, that's already ground, so that's all fine. That seems good. And let's check, did we actually clear the little short that we made by bridging a power line to ground because of being an idiot and not checking. All right, so let's see. All right, ground, not ground, that's good. And that is ground, so that's out as it should be. And then just from inspection, you can see, yep, sure did blow the 1V8 filter. Look at that. 1V8 filter blown. All right, so we got to replace that filter really quickly, and then we can finally see what happens. All right, so we got to replace that dude, which this is another sort of reason why not to jump anything ever, because these little filters really do protect the circuit. So we will now have gotten away with messing up that line for a few seconds there without having any really bad consequences. So goodbye, bad filter. Barely knew ya. And we'll drop in a new filter. All right, if I remember correctly, it was 4 ohms. Yes, it was, Antonio, good job. All right. When I did it, I tried LCM enable to LCM reset, so the 1V8 was going on and off at the same time, but still no display after the phone went to sleep and tried to wake. So you were putting LCM enable, which should be 1.8, to LCM reset, and I assume that you got rid of the filter so that that wasn't just going short to the CPU. Yeah, sounds very reasonable. Makes sense. Ah, that's not your spot. Move over, bro. All right, so we're gonna stick this filter back down. Just do the work with drink video. This will be hard fun. I already did that. That was, we had a bad, long, tough day at the course, and we had to open the wine from Christmas. If you made it direct to the power button, wouldn't the sleep function not work, though? Sleep function not work. Let's see. I think you'd have to, give up stuff. Like, I don't know. If you have a massive problem, like my CPU is shorted and I'm trying to make it be a phone again, then something like sleep is not something that you're gonna have to worry about. All right, so let's get this cleaned up. Sleep is a luxury for people and for phones. Why are you constantly coughing? Whenever I get sick, which I was sick like a couple weeks ago, then it just sticks around forever. That is a weird short. Yes, it is. Now you've booted, drop the line low, and then high again. Well, let's first get it working. Let's get it to actually make sense. I think it's a great idea to pay an extra $100 to have my board fixed. Great idea. I don't really get that. If you're talking about YouTube Live Experience, I think YouTube Live Experience is really fun. It's kind of like what we did yesterday with the guy that walked in the street. It's sometimes just fun to talk about a repair, especially if it's something you put time into and you really struggled with it and you kind of want to walk through it, like this repair, what exactly happened, what did I miss, or if you just want to advertise your business or talk about fun shit going on in your life. It's kind of a hangout. It's an experience. Okay, so now let's go back one more time with the multimeter and make sure that we don't have anything fucked up this time. I'm a glorified electrical janitor like Lewis. Yes, all right. Okay, so we are going to let's make sure that you're not short to ground, and you're you're not short to ground, and you are ground, and you, my friend, need to talk to the connector on pin 4, and you do. Great. All right, everybody is in their right spot. Okay, reset. Let's see what happens now. Now let me try to actually get this connector in. It's funny when you, I don't know if this is true for you guys, but I can really only, like I can connect a screen held in my left hand and connect the connectors in my right hand all day long. But if I try to do it the other way, it feels so incredibly awkward. Since this board is taped down, then I have no choice. I must learn. I must force myself to connect a connector with the other hand. It is so weird, so awkward, so difficult. All right. Okay, so now my screen is connected, and I'm going to connect my dock again. I did get an HDMI splitter. It's at home, so that I can try to get a different camera so that we can kind of switch some camera angles, because it would be cool if we could just pick this camera up and stick it right here, which right now I don't think we can actually do. All right, so now we are going to connect a battery, and we're going to turn on our 1.8 volts so that now we're putting that 1.8 into the reset line, holding it high at 1.8, no reset, high, and I am going to prompt it to boot with the dock. And I see nothing. I also don't see any current being consumed, so that means something is disconnected. Let's get the ground back on there. All right. Okay. And I hear it connecting, but I don't see anything. So let's try that again. I'm gonna click it off, and I'm gonna ask it to boot from scratch again. All right, so we will connect the battery, but not prompt it to boot. And we will connect the wires to my 1V8 line, power on 1V8. So we're sending 1.8 into that connector and prompt to boot, and I see nothing, but I also don't see any current being consumed there, which does kind of make me question these wires. All right, and I heard it detect. Let's make sure it's detecting in normal mode and not in DFU mode. And it does seem to be connecting in normal mode, so all right. Okay, so it detects, and I don't see an image. All right, so now we're back to that sort of same square one failure, which is because I don't see any current being consumed by my DC power supply, it makes me question whether or not I'm actually getting the 1.8 from the DC power supply all the way delivered into the screen. So let's see if we can get kind of a readout on that. I think first I'm just gonna tin this line again and make sure that it is tinned enough to make good connection with the alligator clamp. And then we're gonna have to just put a wire on that pin of the connector to kind of read out that we're actually getting that 1.8 volts there at the connector. And if so, then I would be happy with saying, okay, that doesn't work. And then we would have to think about plan B. All right, so let's see. Let's tin this wire again. Alrighty. 1.8 must be present on AP reset and Chestnut enable at the connector. Yes, that's what we're saying. Once you lock, it won't wake. Yep. All right. All right, so we're just gonna tin this wire. Keeps getting over tinned and breaking. All right, seems okay. So let's connect that again. There we go. All right, let's scroll down on the chat here. Anybody going to shop in Shenzhen? Let's make a shopping list. Nope, not me. Why does the YouTube chat on mobile have username expansion? I do not know. Weird problem. Jason is working over there, but glued to this stream. All right, no tip slip. Haha. All right. Not sure why it's labeled weird. Inject 1 V8 where necessary to get data. Tell them to replace the device or turn auto lock to never and use it as an iPod. What do you mean? It's entirely weird to have a internal short to the CPU for no reason. That's a little bit weird. All right. Let's see. Yeah, it's pretty common. All right. Ah! Jessa coughs from lack of fume extractor. I can't believe that the camera died already. What the heck? Who can pick me up in Victor? El Basha Mediterranean Eatery. Whoa, who knows about that? Pepe's at El Basha? I would totally go pick him up because that is my favorite place. Love that place. All right, we're gonna have to get this camera to charge. This camera battery, now it's like really sucking. Like, I don't think this stream is super long, but time to charge, and there is no AC input to this thing, so that sucks. And it just kind of makes everything suck. All right, so here we go. Let's see if we can get this sucker to charge. And it will not charge and output camera at the same time, so we're kind of stuck with that. But that's all right. All right, so at least we're charging. All right, so let's get busy, and you'll just have to stare at the microscope. All right, microscope image. Microscope image, and we can look at this. All right, so what we're doing right now is we are going to try and see if we're actually getting our 1.8 injected. So let's see. 1.8 injected. 1.8 injected. Come on, 1.8, inject yourself. And I still don't see any current consumption. So you guys a couple of you guys have injected 1 V8 here before. What current consumption did you notice? Let's see. Let's get rid of that. And let's maybe go back and check on this jumper. Let's see. All right, so under the microscope, is this jumper good? Looks like it's good, but we don't really know. Well, that seems like it would make it there. All right, but what I want to do is I want to kind of get a line out on this. So let's kind of move that down. I'm going to take that back a notch so that we can put another wire there just to make sure that we are getting our 1.8 delivered where we expect it to go and that we don't have any kind of a connection problem. So let's grab a mini hot tweezer. We're just going to move this back a nudge. There we go. I got one of these sent from another shop where they had attempted to dig out, like all the way down, digging out a path to try to, it's like they just didn't want it to be within the CPU so desperately that they were willing to dig up the entire board to just make it not be true, to kind of be, no, it's got to be within the, it's got to be from within the trace somewhere in the board. Which I guess is a potential theory, but it just seems really, really unlikely. I'm holding it a little bit too high on the tweezers. Let's get that down. Ah, my mouse. No! Mouse just commit suicide. We were talking this morning in the car about about worst jobs in the world with Sam, who's 10, and I said I thought one of the worst jobs in the world would be the person who mans the 2-year-old room at a daycare. I think that would suck. And he said that he thought one of the worst jobs would be the kindergarten lunch lady. You know, where you're, every day you're spending your whole life like, can you help me get the straw in my Capri Sun? Can you help me open this juice box? Can you help me open this milk? That would really, really suck. And then he said that he came up with what is actually the worst job in the world. Oh yeah, what is it, Sam? Suicide bomber. Ooh yeah, that's a tough one. All right. Jessa with that hairstyle looks younger than Lewis. I can't help it if Lewis is an old man before his time. All right. Amtech fumes do as well, but at least they give you 3 wishes. What are you talking about? All right. All right, so now let's try to get another wire here just so that we can use the multimeter and figure out and just kind of confirm that we're actually getting our 1.8 delivered to the connector. That way we can really make a conclusion here. Otherwise, we'll always sort of question whether or not this is actually working. So I'm pretty sure it's this pin, so let me just check on that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so let's get that on there. We'll do it first. We'll make it sit on here first, and then we'll go check. All right, this is entirely, I don't know why I set it up this way when it's entirely on the opposite side here. That is hard to reach. All right, you're trying to go there. There's no way I can do it from this angle. Yeah, I'm gonna have to just turn this around. I'm gonna have to turn this around. Gotta make it set up for left-handed people. Can't handle this right-handed stuff. All right. Let's turn it around to how it should be. The left-handed way. All right, so what are we doing here? All right, so we're trying to make this plug in to this guy here. All right, so you lay down there like a good little jumper. Lay down. Lay down. And let's get you hooked up. All right, which one are you going to? This one? This one. All right, bro. It's hard to tin that insulation. Okay. All right. Now let's get it to lay down. All right, let's go down. Scroll a little bit. Every rectal thermometer made by Johnson & Johnson personally tested. Now that's the worst job. Rectal thermometer testing. I think that it would be kind of fun to be the rectum designer for the rectal thermometer testing, but I can see that's a pretty bad job. All right, let's get this to kind of lay down nicely somewhere where it's not going to bother anybody. And now we're going to have to do the same thing and tin the other side. Is the poor mouse still working? Yes. The one that jumped off my desk, he is still working. He is rejuvenated. he has seen the light. He has decided to reconsider shaking off this mortal coil. Put the coil back on. All right, so now we're gonna tin the end of this wire. That way, we'll be able to hook up the multimeter and see whether or not we're actually delivering 1.8 to the connector. And if so, if we're getting that 1.8 delivered to the connector, then we're gonna have to conclude that that doesn't work, at least not in this phone. And it may be that this phone is, if a couple of you guys are pretty convinced that that generally does work, then I would, before kind of troubleshooting, all right, how are we going to get the CPU to override the 1.8 volt short to ground by coming up with how many milliamps do we need to deliver in order to put one V8 on that line, which even that would be kind of tough because the line would be expected to be sort of blown out internally on the CPU, but we could certainly investigate that. We could go down that road. But first, if a couple of you guys are like, oh yeah, you can inject one V8 and get image, then I would look to see whether or not there are additional image line problems, which are not uncommon. So in order to have image, you need to have your other voltages for image present. All right, so let's hook that up. So we are going to hook up to the multimeter. Let me make sure I don't get these wires crossed. All right, so which one is this wire? All right, so this is the wire that goes to the multimeter. This is the wire that goes to the DC power supply. So let's start by getting our DC power supply hooked up with the 1V8 that we're going to inject onto this line. All right, 1V8 coming up. Let's try to get good connection to the alligator clamp, which is kind of tough. All right, that seems okay. I'm going to tape that down with a piece of tape. Really need to figure out what I'm going to do about this camera battery problem. It's super annoying. That 1V8 filter trolled me. No image as it was tested good. That's right. Yes, that thing will often test good on the 1V8 LCM image filter. That has trolled a lot of people. All right, let's clean out the connector. And I don't know if I can make it so that you guys can see that. Maybe. All right, let's clean that out. Get a screen on there and test again. Garbage truck cleaner, cleaning bin juice. That sounds pretty bad. The garbage truck guy that has to clean out the garbage truck at the end of the shift. Hosing out a trash truck would suck. You are right. Pepe likes Jessa. What cam you use? Recharger? Pepe helps you to modify to last longer. It's whatever Lewis made me buy. Sony something. I think a lot of people know what it is. I don't know what it is. Sony something. It's a camera. It's not really a video camera. It's just a straight up camera that will do video. All right, so we have 1V8 hooked up. Now let's hook up screen. All right. Ben Duffy says he might still be awake. All right, Ben. So Ben, we got out the oscilloscope, and that signal is just a straight 1.8 voltage. The entire time that the screen is on, it's 1.8. And then when you click off, it goes to 0 pretty quickly. So that seems to be pretty straight up. Okay, so now we're going to put on a dock. Going to move some wires out of the way. So Ben Duffy, isn't it like, it was 1:30 when we talked at like a couple hours ago. So that sounds like it's super middle of the night. Paul, are you going to sell me Viagra? It sure feels like it. Don't know what that is. You are a great teacher. You enlighten me a lot. Teaching people how to think is priceless. Yes, it is. Breaking your screen because you knocked it off the microscope is not priceless. All right, so here we go. Probably, yeah. What's the carrier? You're trying to just make it be an iPod or what?
Yeah. That's the way we brought
Is it an iPod or a phone? An iPhone? Yeah, okay, sure. So did you update it and now it needs a SIM card to activate? Is that the idea? Okay, sure. Just, take the SIM out of my phone.
Where's your phone?
Right here. You'll have to let me know if I get any junk mail texts while you have my SIM in there. You feel free to respond. Everybody that sends me a message is probably a troll. Okay, so let's stick a battery on here. First, we're going to inject our 1.8 voltage, and I did see it flicker, so that's good. Now here comes a battery, and nobody can see anything. This is like even lamer than Lewis's chair stream. I should at least have some kind of an icon to put under the microscope. Like, when you see this, it means Jess is having to recharge her battery again. All right, we are in theory injecting 1.8 volts. Now I'm going to connect to connecting to a battery. I see it. I don't think I see anything. Ooh, I see backlight on the screen. Backlight, but no image. Backlight, but no image. Backlight, but no image. So let's let it come up and make sure it's not in DFU mode. And since we have backlight, but no image, now we are going to test, gosh, this battery. I can't believe this. My multimeter just ran out of batteries. What is up with that? It's like it's kind of like a bunch of chicks living in the dorm where everybody's syncing up their multimeter battery problems. I will just grab.
Steal mine. I'm catching you.
I see that. Hey, Jean, what's up? Look over there for a second. All right, let's see what happens. All right, so now I'm going to use this multimeter and let's see whether or not we're actually getting 1.8 on our rail of interest. All right, so multimeter says, yep, we're getting it, 1.8. So we have delivered the 1.8 to the connector, and we do not have an image. So what does that mean? That means that, here, I gotta put this back before Jean looks over here. What does RIP filter mean? I don't know what that means. Yeah, it's 5 a.m., says Ben Duffy. You are great, thanks. Pepe has lots of cams. Some Sony cams refuse to run on AC adapter. Yes, noise on audio and video, get filters, AC adapter. All right. So let's see. Yeah, the Sony does not have a AC input. Okay, so we have no image. I'm gonna reboot it just to make sure. So I'm gonna take that battery off with my 1V8 connected and prompt to boot. And I see nothing. I do not see backlight or image this time. All right, so let's see. Is iTunes recognizing this in DFU mode? Nope, it's still recognizing it in normal mode. All right, so let's do that one more time. So I'm gonna disconnect, reconnect battery. Screen is on. 1V8 should be going to town there. And I'm gonna prompt it to boot with USB. And in theory it's booting. I don't see anything happening on my 1V8 line. Let's measure it to see, is my 1V8 getting delivered? Do I have it? I do have it. All right, so I see no image. All right, so that's a result then. So I'm confident that we have a good result. So what should we do now? My feeling on this one would be that because there's a couple of folks on stream that have said in their experience that injecting 1.8 on the reset line at the connector will bring back image, that we likely have a different image problem in addition to this, which is possible. So my feeling on how does a phone get this 1v8 AP reset line short, that the way it gets that is likely because of connect-disconnect damage. So connect-disconnect damage only happens when you're troubleshooting a different problem. So if someone is doing connect-disconnect damage, they can damage a connector, or they could do something like plug in the wrong connector and have it short this line to ground, when all along there is whatever the original problem was that is not yet solved. So the typical image problems are blown out 1v8 filter, which we just replaced, so that should be fine. So let's just test to make sure that we've got a highway from the connector to the other side of the filter. So let's just make sure. All right, and we just replaced that, even though a lot of times that thing will measure well but actually still be bad. All right, now we're going to check to make sure we don't have our other classic image faults, which are short on 5v7.
Yeah.
Let's see if we have a good filter here. I think these guys are all in the same. Question?
Do you know anything about two-factor authentication? I haven't seen this before.
For like Google or something?
For the Apple ID.
All right, let me see. All right, what's the history of this device?
Did you just get it, or?
Where'd you get this from? You got this on Amazon? Enter a phone number that can be used to verify your identity with a text message or phone call. Do you have a phone number? Mom, do you have a phone number?
My cell phone, 585.
And you can get a text on that right now?
I'll go get it.
Okay, what's the number? 585
436 5067.
436 5067.
Yeah.
Verify using text message. So this thing wants to send you a text. This is kind of one of those things like, we want all of your information before we'll allow you to access our device. So they want to have a way to make sure that you're you, so that if someone steals this phone or you forget your password, that they'll be able to send you a text and say, are you you? And you'll say yes, and then they'll say, here's the code. Yeah, go grab that real quick and we'll see if we can kind of get past this. All right, now it wants the verification code. All right, Christine, I'm going to turf this back to you.
Okay.
So she needs to grab that phone, get a verification code. So this is all just like personal identification verification. It's not that big of a deal. All right. Let's see, what's going on? Why can't I see you? Oh, take a guess, because the camera's dead. All right, take the line low, then boot, then bring high. No's, don't. What? Apple have started doing two-factor verification. Annoying as question mark. Yes. I second that, Leslie. Well, before that, I mean, my plan would be to check my other required image voltages. So I would want to check to make sure that Chestnut is producing my 5v7 or whatever else is required for image. So I would want to kind of check Chestnut output. That would be where I would be going with this. And the reason why is because two dudes on stream have said that in their experience with this same shorted AP reset line, that they were able to get image. And all I care about is getting image and touch one time in order to get this thing to connect. So because of that history, I would want to go check on Chestnut stuff. Mr. TV Man D donated DKK20 through Super Chat. Hi, good teacher. Thanks, Mr. TV Man D. And I don't know what DKKs are, but 20 DKK sounds fantastic. So thank you for that. And let's see. I'm going to go ahead and check on those Chestnut voltages, especially because we can look at the board and make sure that we're good. Let's go back, flip over. Where's Chestnut? Here's Chestnut over here. And let's see from the schematic what are the voltages that we're going to need for image. So let's go on a hunt. So let's go to iPhone 6S. You guys are welcome to talk me out of going to check Chestnut voltages, but until I get a good argument why not, I think that would be the next step I would pick. Gotta get rid of the phone number in the recorded video. What does that mean? What phone number? What phone number are you talking about? I have absolutely no idea. You can't see. You guys are looking at the thing. All right, let's see. So let's see. What is required for power for image? And we can also check just sort of for continuity on these image lines that are data lines. We really need to have all of these because we need image and touch. So we need to actually have 1.8 on pin 1, and we need to have 5.7 on pin 2, and then we need to have 5.7 negative on 3, 1v8 on 4, and 5v7 there. So I'm going to do something that I think will probably work, which is, we did learn one time when we were, in a debate with, I think somebody like Michael Huey or somebody, about what does it take to actually produce backlight on a phone, that we, my jumper is totally off. My jumper is loose. Now I feel like I gotta do this again. That what the phone cares about for screen is it cares about it at boot. That's when it checks for that LCM enable line, at least in the iPhone 6. So that means that once it thinks it has a screen, that you could take the screen off and it will continue to make the screen voltages. And so that makes it really easy for testing. Whereas before, we had to have, let's get that going. Whereas before, we had to have all these little jumpers and things in order to both have a screen present so that it could actually, well, let's just plug that in right there. But now, you don't really have to have that screen present. All right, so let's try this. Let's put the screen on, boot the thing, rip the screen off, and then see if we can read those voltages that should be present and make sure that they're there. All right, so let's do that. So I'm going to get the screen back on. Screen on. Screen on. I've been noticing that I've been getting a lot more robocalls on my cell phone ever since I filled out the magazine subscription on the Rossmann Repair mail-in site. Probably unrelated. Alright, so here we go. I'm going to hook up my same old 1v8 jumper. I really should just go get a GoPro or something to have as an auxiliary camera while we're figuring this out. Alright, so I'm hooking back up my 1v8 injected current. Alright, so I've got that hooked up. Now I'm going to hook up my battery. And I'm going to find my USB cable. Prompt to boot. Alright, how did I lose my USB cable? That doesn't make any sense. Oh, I have it right here. There we go. Alright, prompt to boot. Prompt to boot. I have backlight, but no image. Alright, so we're prompting to boot. Backlight, but no image, and I do see about 10 milliamps being consumed by DC power supply. So backlight, but no image. All right, so let's look and see whether or not we can actually detect those screen voltages if we just rip the screen off. I wonder if I could put the multimeter under the microscope so that you guys could read it. That would be kind of cool. All right. So what is this? Could be a line timing issue. Could be. All right, so is somebody telling us about them doing this? Let's see. Second that. Leslie, second what? Take the line low, then boot, then bring high. That sounds like a good idea. That's probably worth doing before we move on. Yes, I turned it off because it glitches on older phones. Oh, two-step authentication. It's a reset. Could be timing, yes. Danish Crohn's, good to know. Let's see. Can a bad I2C line cause no display? Sure. Oh, yes. Okay, gotcha. I don't really get, like, when did phone numbers become, like phone numbers used to be delivered to everyone's mailbox in a giant yellow book that you sat on at the dinner table so that you could reach it. So it's you know, like that's just silly. My phone number's on all kinds of things. All right, Pepe asked Kermit the Frog, $3 US is one smorbrod. Oh, okay. All right, I recently did a data recovery on a 4 using 3U to view the screen. Not sure. No, that's not going to work here. You need to have touch. And I already tried to do a, image dongle. Let's see. My schematic not like that. It's just showing component. I don't know what you're talking about. All right, so let's. By the way, I do have backlight on this, and when the phone naturally sleeps, and then I pull the USB and plug it back in to wake it, it does generate backlight again. So backlight, so we're troubleshooting image, but backlight appears to be coming on and going off as expected. All right, so backlight is on right now, and I'm gonna rip off this screen. Doing it, boom, boom. All right, so I just ripped off the screen with the device totally live, and this is a booted underpower live device, and we are gonna see what voltages do we get. All right, so let's find a ground. That looks like one. All right, here we go. What are we getting here? Is that not a ground? We are getting nothing, like a little flicker, and then nothing. That's good ground. Come on, a flicker and then nothing. How about on backlight? .172, 4.2, 0.178. I'm surprised there's anything on the cathode lines. All right, let's see what we're getting here. Nothing. Pretty much nothing. 1.8. So we're getting 1.8, which is our image power. Nothing. 1.8. Also 1.8, which is great since we've got a jumper there. Now I'm over here and I'm getting some flickering voltage. Same here. That's ground and it's 0. And I'm getting some flickering voltage on my image data line, so that's good. I'm getting a voltage on this image data line. That's ground. Getting voltage on image data. Getting voltage on image data. Ground. 1.6. 0.22. Ground. All right, so what I've learned here is that I'm getting my image data. I'm getting some voltage on those. I'm getting 1.8 on the, I'm getting on the backlight rail 4.2, which is battery voltage, which is what I would expect. I'm actually interested to see what happens if I prompt it to wake up. So I just pulled it and I put it back in USB to prompt it. So let's measure that here. Did it realize I don't have a screen? It could have checked for that screen on prompt. Nope, so it's still 4.2. 4.2 battery voltage. Let's do that again. I don't think that backlight lines really pull a voltage unless it's under load. Let's see, yep, 4.2. All right, so this tells me that it thinks there's a screen connected because it's producing some voltages here. But down here, oh wait, I did get a flicker of 1.8. Where did it go? That makes me question the connector itself. And I'm going to test out here at the foot of the connector. Right there. Nope. All right, let me wake it up again. All right, now it's awake. It's awake. What do I get? Pretty much nothing there. Nope. Next guy, nothing. Next guy, nothing. So these are all Chestnut power lines for the most part. Those guys. And I guess if the screen's not there, then I guess that is not going to send that Chestnut power enable, LCM power enable to Chestnut, which is Chestnut's enable line. All right, so I'm not sure that we can expect for Chestnut voltages to be there. All right, so that was fun. All right, which value is the correct value for that PCB? Lewis yesterday uploaded video number 1000 to YouTube. Any congratulations or donations? No, fuck no. Lewis can fucking go like take his $1 million of checks to the bank. No, fuck that. Congratulations, Lewis. Good job. All right, done with that. Might be best if you zoomed out so we can see what you're doing. This is max zoom out. That is the best that you could do. All right, so let's see. No, I got like super annoyed the other day. All right, let's take this off. Disconnect battery, disconnect that. All right. I'm kind of interested to try this actually right now on my other board with the identical problem to sort of rule out that there is something up with image that is in addition to this problem on a different board. Kind of want to do that. Otherwise, next I would have to kind of assume at some point that the CPU itself has to know that you've got 1.8 on that line. So then you'd have to think about, all right, how could I inject 1.8 volts into the CPU when there's a full short on that line, which as long as there's some resistance, you could use a calculator to figure out how much you would have to inject on that line. But I'd want to just kind of rule everything out before I inject the voltage into the CPU. So that I might want to do later. And I'm getting like really, really close to bus o'clock anyway. All right, so let's clean that off. All right, so I just want to make sure that I have some continuity here on my 1V8, because I think that my 1V8 LCM power I would expect to be present anyway. I just replaced that guy. All right, none of this is short. All right, let's just check around Chestnut. Pretty sure that guy's just a GPU line. All right. Actually, let's change Chestnut for the, just to rule it out, because that's the easiest way to rule it out. Hi, Jessa. I found the videos from Code and More very helpful. They teach you how to read schematics and more. Fantastic. Whoa, epic response. All right. Did the short kill other components? I don't think so, but that's sort of why I'm going to go ahead and replace Chestnut. So I think replacing Chestnut is the easiest way to rule out Chestnut. So that 5v7 line just goes back to Chestnut and is generated by Chestnut. I've never seen, and that line gets short all the time and it never like bothers anything. It's one of the signature failures. One of those caps goes bad after drop. We were looking at it today. It was Ben that noticed that. Guess what the rating is for the caps that are on this 5.7 volt Chestnut output line? Guess what the maximum voltage rating is for those caps? They're expected to carry 5.7 volts all day, every day, and they are rated, I really need to figure out if I have to be at the bus. Rated for, take a guess, any guesses? 6.3 volts. That seems really tight on the tolerance there. So those fail all the time, so a lot of folks were walking around with 5v7 line shorts. And the solution is just clear the short and then the image comes back. It never really does anything else. Alright. So let's kind of speed up because I am on a time limit right now. So let's see. Jessa, this word comes from a troll in Nebraska. Alright. I'd laugh if you have a 5v7 AVVDH short. Yeah, I would laugh too. I would laugh if I didn't already check that. Which I'm 90% sure that I would have checked that first before. My routine would be check for 1v8 filter, check for the 5v7 image short, and then look for that AP line short, the reset line. That would be pretty funny though. Alright, let's get a bigger tip in here so that we can get this chip on here. This is so much like research science. It really is. You know, where a lot of what you're doing is, you know, you can kind of have like, hey, let's investigate this hypothesis. But then you have to do so much tiny legwork just to be sure that you can interpret your results. Alright, that looks good. Let's grab a Chestnut. Here you go, Chestnut. Come on out and play. Come on out and play, bro. Alrighty. I think it is really funny, the massive difference in the world between 1985 and now, where the idea of you said somebody's phone number out loud, so you know, just like that's just crazy. When did we just change so much? You know, like that whole, like, you know, dating question on the forum that I was talking about the other day, where I got in trouble for saying, you know, if you have a girl that walks in and you hit it off, then yeah, it's kind of creepy that you have her phone number because you're changing her screen, but, you know, give her a call. Like, that's not the end of the world. And a lot of people were just like, oh my God, no. It's like this idea of HIPAA privacy has superseded common sense. That the idea of protecting personal information, like your phone number that you use for two-way communication with everyone, is somehow a secret. What? When did we turn into, when did that happen? And is that a good idea? It's really funny living in a small town that as far as HIPAA stuff goes, I went down to the, I went down to, a couple of places where you can get medical attention, like a pediatrician or a dentist or a couple of places like that. There we go. And, I'll just ask them, like, oh, my friend was here. They recommended you. So what was wrong with her? And they'll just be like, oh, she's got whatever. It's just like super, super common sense, which I absolutely love. All right, so now we have replaced Chestnut. So I think I'm going to wrap this up because I am running out of time. It probably changed when people started harvesting people's info. Well, it's just sad. It's sad. It makes me want to say, back in my day, back in my day. It's a troll thing. It's a troll thing. All right, so let's see if we can bring back the camera. Hopefully it got like a molecule of charge to finish this out with a test. And we'll have to revisit this if this doesn't work. All right. Hello, camera. Did you get any charge? It doesn't tell you how much battery it has left. Alrighty. All right, so we're gonna finish this up, and I gotta stick my jumper back on for the 1v8 injection. And we'll see if changing Chestnut did anything, and then otherwise we are out of time for science class today, and everybody can go back to work. So next, if this doesn't work, if my plan would be to kind of verify the voltages in a more precise way where I knew the screen was connected, and then if I had my image voltages present and delivered, and I had my 1v8 injected right at the connector for the reset line, which I know now is exactly what it needs in order to produce image, then I would have to conclude that injecting 1.8 is not enough to bring back image. All right, let's see. I missed the good old rotary dial phone. Yes, I think I mentioned this on stream the other day that we went and looked at a house the other day, and they had a rotary phone, and my kids were like, oh my god, that is so cool. Not if your number has a lot of nines in it, then it is not cool. Which is interesting that 911 kind of started around when most people were using rotary phones. Why not 111? Was it because you had to like make it hard? 9. I wonder how many people are dead today because 911 starts with a 9 and they couldn't do that. Like, that's a lot. That's hard on a rotary phone. Be a lot easier if they just had to do ones. If 111 saves lives, it should be a campaign. Nowadays, I don't think it matters that much. But at the time. All right. So what I'm doing now it is time to look under the microscope. I am sticking my 1v8 jumper back on there. All right, bro. And this time I will try letting it go kind of low and then bringing it back. If this doesn't work. Get off there, mofo. I'm not having that again. Ah. This wire is a little bit too thick for the job, but we're gonna make it work. Making it work. All right. So let's test. Let's test. Get this to lay down between those guys. There, you can touch him. He's 1v8 too. Why not? Why not be 1v8 all the time? All right, let's make sure we're tinned at the end of this thing. Tinned at the end. we are. Okay, so what we're doing now is our kind of the wrapping up point for today, which is to see whether or not we can inject 1v8 right at the screen. And it does seem to be producing image data. So that's a good thing that we learned from that last voltage test that we saw. We saw image data voltages, so that's good. That's really good, actually. So it's not that the CPU, because reset is low within the CPU, that means that the CPU is constantly, like if you're trying to play Atari and somebody's got their finger on the reset, it's never going to work. So that at least does not seem to be the case. All right, so let's go ahead and stick a screen. I am in deep trouble if I'm supposed to be picking up the girls on the bus. And I don't know if I am. I will find out. I don't know, but actually, maybe I can tell him, because today was the day I was going to stay home and clean the house and go to the gym, and that was it. But then I stopped in here because it was raining. Let's see. Let's see if I can text him. I doubt he has his phone. All right. We'll have to fly like the wind. All right, so now we're gonna do this last test, and we are gonna hook up 1v8 on our injection line. So 1v8, so there's 1v8 and ground, and it is consuming a couple of milliamps. Battery is connected, and now we are prompting it to boot. And I see backlight and no image. So let's go ahead and pull that line low by just turning it off and hitting ground. All right, so it's detected. Now let's pull the line high. Anything happen? Nope, no image. No image. All right, so we have a phone here that we might be able to pick up and show you guys at least this one time. So we have a phone here that has backlight. So you can see the backlight is working, and it has no image. So no image. We have 1.8 injected that we're pretty, I can see a couple of milliamps there, so that seems like that's going in. And I can even short that line. And doesn't seem to, and then kind of bring it back high. That doesn't seem to suddenly generate a display. Let's just make sure. I don't see any kind of display. And as far when we started, this was, I would always like kind of rule out part, so I would rule out display next. But it doesn't seem to be the case. All right. I think I can pull backlight on and off though with this. Does it? Let's see. I'm going to turn out my microscope light so I can see whether or not backlight's on or not. Let's see. Yep, no, backlight goes on and off as it detects. Well, when I let go of that, nope, backlight stays on. So this reset really seems to be for image and not backlight. And not touch, my guess is. All right, so we still have no image. I kind of want to see though, just for fun, if I have an image with a dongle to show me image. Which doesn't help if you don't have touch. And in my experience troubleshooting a lot of these things, if you don't have image on the display, you won't have touch. All right, so I'm gonna see what happens if I plug this in and, That I don't think I'll be able to show you guys that. That's not gonna work. All right. So I am gonna see if I get an image with my HDMI output dongle. And survey says, yes, I do get an image up there. So I get an image. I can see image on the dongle. Let's see if it happens to have touch this time. Every other one of these has not had touch, but let's find out. All right, there's my image. And I have no touch. Yep, so no touch. You don't get to have touch if your screen is off. And I have my reset line high. So I was hoping that I could at least just get touch, but no, it doesn't work. So image is being produced by the device. It's just not making it to the screen. All right, so there we go. Yep. All right, let me take that apart. That is like super sad. That's a really cute kid on her lock screen. All right, so what are we gonna do? We are going to go to the bus. Yeah, Jean's like, we're gonna go to the bus. We are going to go to the bus and be a mom, and that's what we're gonna do right now. And we will come back to this later. I think this stuff is pretty fun, but you can only do like a science session of so long in one day. So here's what we learned, just to recap, that it seems to be a pretty common defect for this AP to LCM reset line to become short to ground within internal to the CPU on iPhone 6s. It seems to be associated with people that are plugging something into the connector repeatedly. Maybe it may be just trying an iPhone 6 screen in a 6s, or trying the camera connector instead of the digitizer connector because the cables are out of order. So for whatever the reason is, we're starting to see this as kind of a common effect. So the problem is not at the connector side, and it doesn't appear to be the traces in the board. It seems to be an actual problem within that ball of the CPU. So most likely what happens is that some voltage gets sent through the connector, through that disconnect down and bothers the CPU. So what does that line do? That line is required in order for the display to show image. And it appears to be required also for touch. So if you have that, what our research today with the oscilloscope and studying the line told us is that anytime the screen is on and display is active, the reset line is high at 1.8, and it stays at 1.8. It doesn't send any data, no ones and zeros, it's just 1.8 is the signal. And then whenever you click the lock or power button to take away the display, that line goes down to 0, and it stays at 0 until you activate the display again. So it seems to be just kind of a really simple reset switch. High means screen's on, low means screen's off. So what we tried to do is say, forget about the CPU, just let that line short within the CPU. Let's just deliver the 1.8 to the connector. And so we did that. So we pulled the filter and we injected 1.8. We confirmed that we were actually getting 1.8 at the connector. And in our case, in our hands, we did not see image on this device. I can see image if I plug in an HDMI dongle, and I can see output of image. So that kind of tells us at least that this phone is putting out image. And I'm pretty sure I did that before and I didn't see image. So that was kind of interesting. I'll have to think more about that. But we don't have touch. So we replaced Chestnut just to rule out other causes of no image. We replaced the 1v8 LCM filter, which is a common cause of no image. And somewhere along the way, I caused a short on that 1v8 power line to ground, which blew the filter. That really shouldn't be a big deal. We saw that, cleared the bridge and replaced the filter. But that is a little bit of a variable in this particular case. So what I'd like to do is kind of just confirm this finding on another case, because a couple people in chat said, hey, I have also seen this problem and I was able to inject 1v8 volts into the connector itself and get image. And in this case we're not. So there doesn't appear to be any short to ground on any of the 5v7 image lines or the 1v8 image power line. And we seem to have image data because we measured for voltage at the connector with the device under power. We did see voltage on those data lines for image. So So that's the deal with this one right now. And then our next thought would be, what would it take to send that 1.8 back to the CPU to kind of unreset it, or is that even necessary? So next stop for us would be to confirm this on a copy of this case, because of the fact that some folks are saying, hey, I was able to get image back with a reset line short by taking the filter and injecting the voltage, and we were not. So we want to know if this phone happens to be multifactorial, or if they were talking about some other line, or who knows what they were talking about. So next up for me would be to see if this is true on another case of this exact same problem, and if it is, then I would continue on to kind of troubleshoot and think, what do we need to do to get that line back? Alrighty, so it is time to go pick up the bus, and thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.